Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
With our powers combined, we are and always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, which is up for renewal. I need to talk to you guys about money. Unnaturalshow.com.
Money? You know me, I don't understand
money.
The amount of times we've talked on this podcast where, you guys are all like, oh, well, Stephen McEisenhower's theory of economics in his 1948 seminal work that I just read in my leisure time. Like, I'm not even studying economics. My idea of a good afternoon is to sit down with a nice port and a cigar and read about what China's going to mean in the world global order.
I know you're making fun of me, but that actually sounds delightful.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good afternoon.
I read a good opinion piece in the ABC the other day and I sat down with a coffee and I was like, this is a nice morning.
Hello, David Spears. What have you got to tell me about the macroeconomic situation?
Wow, back up just 1 second, though. Mm-hmm. Are we saying that we have no regular income and that we have to pay for this podcast ourselves?
That is exactly what we're saying. Yeah.
Almost like this thing is free.
It is very funny that we talk about what we think might be good economic practice, both from like a corporate business standpoint ethically and then also from like a societal governance perspective, when we ourselves, after 12, 13 years of doing this, have failed to both to monetize, even to just break even and self-sustain, let alone any sort of semblance of profit. And frankly, we probably have no business in telling anyone how they should be doing it.
The good thing about the internet, Tom, is you don't need to be qualified to have opinions. You can just put them out there. And just That's because true. We're not good at capitalism, or choose not to be good at capitalism in this one instance.
Oh, it's because we choose not?
Sure.
Is that why? We could be making billions if we just
I'm pretty
chose
sure we
to.
could have all financial independence, retire early off the income of this podcast if we so choose. But we choose not to be corporate shills, Tom. Choose not to be fucking sellouts, you piece of shit.
I don't want to be beholden to me.
Oh, look.
He's a jerk. I don't want to listen to him.
What's this? Hot off the press. Oh, what's this? $1 million advertising offer from Chevron.
Yeah.
Get fucked, mate.
Yeah. Throw it out the window. I keep dodging the calls from the king of show business. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. It's actually a body corporate invoice. I need that for later. So I'm just going
to unfurl that.
Just going to uncrunch that.
Back. Put that back in the filing cabinet, buddy.
That's actually an important one. I haven't paid that.
It's a prop. It's a prop he tried to use.
Speaking of things that should have been put back in the filing cabinet rather than had anything done with it, Indonesia's new criminal code.
Indonesia has decided they don't want any more tourists. Thank you very much. And go away. We don't want anyone having premarital sex in Indonesia. And all the tradies said in unison, well, I guess we're going to Thailand then.
Well, no, I guess they all said in unison, like, oh, well, it's good for us that we're going to Bali, right? And I was like, Bali's in Indonesia,
mate.
What? Huh? I thought Bali was its own country. Reality of Australian debauchery in international waters. Like, no, it's in Indonesia.
Very much in Indonesia.
You might not be familiar with this concept, but there are other countries other than Australia.
Indonesia has passed a controversial new criminal code that includes outlawing sex outside marriage and cohabitation in changes that critics contend could undermine freedoms in the Southeast Asian region. I'd say it's less of a contention and more of a statement of fact that if you are taking away people's freedoms to do things, then it would undermine freedoms.
Yeah.
They needed to do it, gentlemen. It was well overdue, apparently, because it was approved unanimously. I can't say that word properly.
Unanimously.
Unanimous. Yep, let's do it. It was proved. Insert U word.
It was approved. Enemy
by Indonesia's parliament on Tuesday, and so that actually replaces a framework that apparently has been around since like 1946, which is like a mix of Dutch law and this like customary like local law called Hukum Adat. I don't know what that means. And Indonesian law. So basically there's all these different things. So the concept is this legislation is now going to supersede that and will be the governing thing of the land.
Yeah, this whole situation has taught me a lot about Indonesian history in that I wasn't sort of fully aware of like the Dutch occupation of the region and then only sort of independence in the 40s, and their laws and systems are kind of a hodgepodge of like what they've decided to enact and left over like Dutch law from back then. And yeah, like fascinating stuff. But they've decided, you know what? We're going to ban sex unless you're married. No ring, no fling.
It's definitely the most pressing issue in Indonesia.
I was going to say,
now.
Indonesia solved all the other problems, so it's inevitable that they would turn to this. It's actually
the whole West Papuan issue, like that's sorted. Don't worry about it.
Definitely sorted, or at least it soon will be, because having sex before marriage was the problem. Like it was a key cause of all the issues, and we've taken care of it.
Yeah, Jakarta sinking into the sea. Done. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Done.
Fix that one.
Yeah, the lack of fornicating will actually like lower sea levels.
Yeah, there's about 30 million people that lacked access to an improved water source, but that's fine. Don't worry about that.
It's fine. As long as they're not fucking, then that's okay.
And
don't worry about it.
Actually, and 70 million of the country's 264 million have had no access to improved sanitation.
Fun.
Since the previous assessment. About 25 million people in Indonesia don't have access to toilets, so open defecation is taking place. But yeah, don't worry about that because we stopped the root rats, so problem solved.
Yep. It's so strange because I mean, like one thing, the sex before marriage, but also the cohabitation was just the other one, which like struck me as a little odd because it's like, all right, so you can't live like if you have a flatmate who just happens to be of a different gender to you, is that cohabitation? Like you're just friends.
Only if you're fucking.
If you have sex with them, if you have sex with your friends, Tom, that's bad. Don't have sex with your friends. That's the moral of the story.
Or your enemies, because all of it's outlawed.
Unless you've married them. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
But like, you have to have already done like this, the ceremony bit. You can't do it before. Like if you go to Indonesia to get married, you can't have sex in the lead up to the actual marriage. You got to like wait till the thing. Yeah. But look, in practice, the way this is meant to work, and this is what I don't get, is that your family members have to dob you in.
Yes, everyone. Yeah, well, because it's not like unless you're gonna have people just like knocking around, being like, "Anyone fucking in here?" I'm like,
hello?
Yeah, kind of. We're in the middle of it. Yeah, all right. Where's the ring?
Too busy to come to the door.
Marriage certificate.
Call the police.
Sort of stuff. Like, yeah. So, of course, you're not going to have just the constant sex patrol. So, yeah, it is going to have to be people will have to report other people's carnal acts to the police.
I mean, it can be your parents. So, like I guess, like mum and dad. Like obviously, if little Timmy brings home a girlfriend one night and then daddy doesn't like that, daddy can send his son to the police or something. I get to jail.
Please don't say daddy.
Ever again.
In 2019,
the children can report it as well. Was it an interesting one?
Like my mum brought home a strange dude last night. Let's send them both to jail so I can live without a parent. Like what? I don't understand the logic.
An odd one, right? It was like, dad and his friend were playing wheelbarrow last night, and I am confused. Police officer. I don't know. Take them away. It's
why would a child like if that's their sole guardian or something? What are they going to do? Like. It's just it doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. So it'd be great to actually talk to someone who's maybe from Indonesia to actually understand culturally perhaps where this is coming from.
It comes from an ultra-conservative set of religious zealots that want to impose their theocratic values on the rest of society, and because they have the swing to do that, they've done it. It really doesn't. It doesn't. I don't see it needs to be more complicated than that. We're like, let's tease out the cultural intricacies and try to understand where it came from. Where it came from, a bunch of religious zealots. There's just a bunch of real far right wing shitheads.
Yeah, can we just isolate that clip and anytime we ask, but so why is this happening in whatever country? And we just play that
religious zealots.
Because
I have it on my little soundboard
everything you said
here.
in there was not specific to any particular country, but I feel is applicable in so many different scenarios, be it America, Iran, Indonesia.
Why did Herschel Walker come so close to winning the state runoff in Georgia? Religious zealots and a bunch of racist fuckheads. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
The biggest Islamic country in the world is actually Indonesia by population. They've got the largest proportion of Islamic people in that country.
But it's interesting that Bali is mostly Hindu.
Yeah.
Like the tourist destination is like not overwhelmingly Islamic, but are being governed by this overwhelmingly Islamic flavored code of conduct, which would be interesting.
Bali is an interesting example because, but the Balinese people are their own culture within the largest sect of India. And same thing with like West Papua. Like West Papuans aren't Indonesian, quote unquote. They're just controlled by Indonesia. Same thing with like Timor-Leste, different areas, around the Indonesian archipelago. So the thing though with these religious zealots, right, is that in the constitution of Indonesia is that it's meant to be secular. Like you can't have where's the actual.
Good luck with that.
I've got to try and find it now, but basically, there's something in the constitution which says that you can't have you got to have separation between church and state, basically.
Yeah. So the American Constitution has something similar, and that.
Great!
It's one of those fun parts of the Constitution that you can just ignore. The right to bear arms, obviously, supersedes anything else. Right to freedom of speech and use N-words on Twitter, obviously that is paramount. But the bit about separating
church
and
state, can't have a functioning
state,
democracy without it.
That's just a fun, seasonal extra, a little ice cream topping that you can choose to have or not, as the mood strikes you.
And speaking of ice cream topping, another part that kind of also got buried in this a little bit, because everyone's talking about that, they've banned sex before marriage, and so A, that's fucked, and then B, all the people won't go over to, all the people who go to Bali go there for weekends of debauchery, so it's going to totally fuck the tourist economy, etc. But another part of it is that you can land a prison term of up to 3 years for insulting the sitting president.
Cool.
Another part of these criminal code
You can still
changes.
criticize them, you just can't insult them.
Yes, and apparently
distinction.
And apparently the government has provided a strict, they quote here on Al Jazeera, the strictest possible explanation that distinguishes between insults and criticism. They don't elaborate on that point, so they don't say what that criteria is. I'd be very interested to know.
Let's just say he's very easily insulted.
Or Joko and his, is it Yoko or Joko?
Joko Widodo.
His feelings might get hurt.
Remember, I remember when he first made it into power, everyone was like, look, he's the Indonesian Obama. Look, he even kind of looks like Obama and he's charismatic like Obama. And it's going to be like Indonesian Obama. Time magazine had these gushing editorials about how it was like a new age for Indonesia. And I was like, hey, didn't I see these same gushing editorials from you guys when Erdogan came to power as well? And everyone's like, oh, it's a new sort of neoliberal era for Turkey's economy, and they're going to be part of the BRICS, and it's going to be a whole new era of, and it's just like, I feel like whenever someone comes to power in another country that isn't obviously terrible, the media is just like, it's a new era for this country. And it's like, maybe we should be a little bit more circumspect going forward. Just because the dude looks like Obama doesn't mean he's going to act like Obama. I can't believe I need to explain this to you, Time magazine. But just because he looks kind of a little bit like Obama doesn't mean he's going to be Obama. Even Obama didn't live up to the promise of Obama. So I'm just very curious as to all this sort of the mainstream media. I've seen the documents, the mainstream media. I'm always curious that the mainstream media are so willing to rally behind these sort of people. And it's just over the next 10 years, we'll find out they're corrupt and fucked. But don't worry, we'll have new editorials by then. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Then, this law has been around since 2019. They've been sort of working
proposed.
on it.
Yeah.
And then they had massive protests.
As I said, they've sold everything else. So then we knew that they had to get around to this.
They'd get around to it sometime. Yeah. Just getting through the back catalogue. And there were massive protests there, and there's been massive protests now. But I guess the thing will be, because apparently there's going to be like a 3-year period until it really sort of takes effect or something. The president's still yet to sign off on it, but they recently, there was a law last year they passed in relation to something to do with job creation, and that was deemed unconstitutional when they had to sort of can it. So whether or not this law would directly potentially, go against the Constitution in regards to the secularism aspect will be interesting. But you'd think if they came this far that they would have done their research and probably checked that.
Or they don't give a fuck.
You never know.
There's also has implications for the LGBTQ community in Indonesia, because if you can't get married, all sex is premarital sex. So it's basically just functionally made homosexuality illegal as well. So I'm just...
Right.
Yeah. Cool country. Cool and normal.
Well, I guess speaking of cool and normal, should we jump into America or Australia here? Which one of those is cool and normal under those kinds of circumstances?
It's a segue that applies no matter which way you cut it, I suppose.
Fairly universally.
Let's go to America. Let's get all the depressing stuff out of the way, and then we'll finish strong. So Donald Trump's company was convicted of tax fraud last week in a case brought by the Manhattan District Attorney, which is a pretty significant repudiation of the former president's business practices. So essentially, the Trump organization was accused of being complicit in a scheme by top executives to avoid paying personal income taxes on job perks such as rent-free apartments and luxury cars. So basically a lot of self-dealing, handing money to themselves and the top executives, and not paying tax on any of it, which you're supposed to do when you give out perks. Here it's called a fringe benefits tax. I don't know what the equivalent is in the US, but it's like, if you get a bunch of free shit from the organization, you're supposed to, pay for that somehow.
This is after, obviously Donald Trump himself isn't convicted of anything. It's the company.
That's the company.
That will get fined.
This is the fun thing about corporate structures, is that even though a company is comprised of individuals who make decisions that dictate the actions of the company, very rarely are individuals actually convicted or fined as a result of the things that they do. It's a fun thing about corporate law where it's essentially you can be a sociopath, do a bunch of unethical, illegal things, and the company will be held responsible, which means they might need to pay a fine. But all the individuals in the company that did the unethical, illegal things say, wow, it's really fucked up that this company did all these unethical, illegal stuff. Someone should really do something about that. Hey, anyway, I'll take my golden parachute. See ya.
Yeah, it's like, of course, anytime, that someone, there's a traffic collision between a car and a pedestrian, the car gets hauled off in handcuffs.
Oh my God, this car's crazy.
Yeah, Jesus, sure, the car was unable to actually do any of the things that it did without the person behind the wheel making the decisions for it to do it. But no, it's all the car's fault.
Boy, this car's
Arrest
really
all
drunk.
the guns. Every gun should be fined.
Can't believe how drunk this car was when he got into this car accident. Anyway, I need a lift home, officer. So the Trump organization could be fined up to $1.6 million, a relatively small amount.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot.
No, it's given the organization's size, but it's another ding against Trump. Might affect the ability of anyone in the Trump family to head up an organization in the New York State area, things like that. But this is one of many different kinds of legal actions that are happening against the Trump family, Trump organizations around the place. So it's good to see someone
good
actually,
look, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a great look.
When the front runner for the Republican Party has multiple different kinds of legal actions going on against him, his organization was convicted of doing tax fraud. Maybe don't. Yeah, Jimmy. Who was the Jimmy something? The president before Reagan, Jimmy Carter.
Carter
had to give up his interest in a peanut farm. because it could be seen as like a conflict of interest and people like dinging him because it's like, oh, this is fucked. You've got a fucking peanut farm and you're going to give like, subsidies to Big Peanut and like all this sort of shit. And like, it's so funny that like a mere 40 years later, everyone's like, yeah, the guy runs a criminal enterprise, but I mean, what are you going to do? Like investigate him? I don't know. Shrug.
Yeah, I mean, it's dodgy, but I'll still vote for him.
Yeah, here's the thing about calcification is all the people who are already Trump voters are still going to be Trump voters the next time round. I really don't think it's going to make an appreciable difference too. Like, wait a minute, hang on. You telling me the guy's organization was convicted of tax fraud? As a sensible, moderate voter, I don't think that kind of conduct is acceptable. It's all about the morality. It's all about character. All those people that were marching on Washington about Bill Clinton getting a blowjob saying character matters. Like, wasn't your guy convicted of tax fraud? It's like, well, it was his company. So...
No. I mean, he released his tax record. It was all fine. We've seen the documents. It's fine.
All good. What about when he had sex with a prostitute while his wife was pregnant with his son? His character doesn't really matter. We were just saying that. We just
love his orange makeup. It just redeems all qualms.
What about when he said, Mexicans were rapists and murderers, and some, I assume, are good people? That was the opening part of his campaign in 2015. Doesn't character matter with that? And they're like, yeah, but I don't really like Mexicans. So fuck them, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was always going to pull this lever, so you just turn around and let me do it I can't do it while you're making eye contact with me because I know deep down inside that I'm a hypocritical piece of shit. So
otherwise I won't sleep at night.
I can't go when you're watching, so I need you to turn around so I can pull this lever for Trump, which I was always going to do.
It's fate. You can't change it.
Yeah.
Trump is also, by the way, he has also just said all of this is just a witch hunt and everything.
What?
It's a vindictive war waged against him by the Democrats.
From Donald
New York
Trump?
being
Crazy.
a Democrat state. I mean, I don't know if the people in Virginia necessarily... Is Virginia Democrat or is it Republican? I just assumed Virginia would be Republican.
West Virginia is Joe Manchin, the Senator Joe Manchin, who's a Democrat, technically.
Oh, Democrat-ish.
Yeah.
Democrat-ish.
Virginia
in name, not Democrat.
Insert Republican state here. Okay.
Virginia's governor race got lost to a Republican, Glenn Youngkin, about a year ago. So I don't know about the rest of the legislature or the senators or any of that sort of stuff off the top of my head. But
anyway, yeah. So Donald Trump still probably going to win the presidency in when's the election? 2 years.
It's coming.
2024.
Just like Christmas and other insert thing here. Staying in the US, you may or may not have heard of Brittney Griner. Who was an American basketballer,
was and is.
Yes. I'm assuming she'll go back to it. And the reason why she would go back to it is because she was detained by Russia for a reasonably extensive period of time, almost 300 days. And
nearly a year. So
and if you didn't need any confirmation, or if you did need confirmation, perhaps a better way of putting it, that there's another Cold War happening, this would be it, because they had to organize rather than just sorting it out. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. No, they had to do a fucking prisoner swap, and the prisoner swap was with a fucking what was it? Bloody
arms dealer.
Arms dealer. So Russia wanted back an arms dealer for a basketballer.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy's nicknamed the Merchant of Death because he's a great dude.
Just a nice guy.
Well, I mean, and of course that's a classic kind of play in those sorts of instances, right? It's like, it's not saying that a basketballer and a arms dealer are equivalent, but more that they're like, oh, well, we've imprisoned like a person like greatly unjustly. We can then use this opportunity to strong arm them into returning an arms dealer.
So Griner.
Why would you want that guy in your country? Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, why do you want an arms dealer back? Because he was obviously doing stuff for the Kremlin, right? Like he got arrested in the line of duty. The guy's a hero at home. Griner, an American basketballer who, because she's part of the women's league, who gets fuck all compared to the men's league, had to go over to Russia to play this special sort of like promotional game, which she does pretty regularly these seasons of sort of promotional games that the women's teams do more often than the men, for money reasons, are done quite regularly. And she was over there getting $1 million for this Russian tournament. Anyway, they say that they found a cartridge of a vape pen which had some sort of remnants of cannabis oil in it, which is a crime in Russia. And so she was arrested, I would say, under bullshit pretenses in order to capture a high-profile American to trade against someone that they wanted in the US, which is exactly
for leverage for something. And
yeah,
whether or not there was exactly this guy they wanted at the start, or they just wanted to have something when they did want something.
Yeah, I mean, it could just as easily have been like, famed character actress Margot Martindale or any other like high-profile American. If Steven Spielberg was touring the country, they'll be like, oh, yep, we'll have one of those.
Yeah.
It just happened to be Brittney Griner at the time, and so she's
Why
lost.
don't they just take Steven Seagal and keep him?
You can have Steven Seagal.
No one wants Steven Seagal. He's famous. I think he's got a Russian passport anyway at this point. But
who's the basketballer that keeps who's going to North Korea? What's that guy's name?
Oh,
Dennis Rodman?
Dennis Rodman. Yeah, you can have Dennis Rodman. You can have Steven Seagal. All of these like dead shit. Chuck Norris. You can have all these dead shit fuckheads. You can keep them, actually. You don't even need to give us anyone back. But apparently there was another American who they were trying to also negotiate a release for, but Russia was like, no, 1 for 1. So that guy's still in jail.
Jesus.
Yeah. And Russian jails are not like good jails.
They're like labor camps, quite literally.
Yeah. Anyone who's played Call of Duty Warzone knows when you go to the Gulag, it's not a good time. So,
fact, not fiction. The thing is with Victor Bout, who's the arms dealer, he was like arrested in 2008 and got deported to the US or extradited in 2010. So he's been hanging around in their jail for a long period of time. Yeah.
I guess you also got to do a calculus there of like, okay, it's been, 12 years now. How much damage can this guy really do? Like all his networks, all the people that he knows, all that sort of shit are gone. It's really more of a symbolic thing rather than anything else at this stage. But it's like, a guy whose nickname is the Merchant of Death because of all the dodgy fucking arms deals. And like, clearly this is a really bad dude. There is a principle there of like, this guy shouldn't be back out on the street again. But you got to do what you got to do.
Picked up by the Wagner Group or however it's pronounced. The mercenaries that are like Putin's right hand.
No, the Wagner Group doesn't exist, Adam.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't it? Yeah. No, okay. Yeah.
Doesn't exist unless you're looking right at it. If you look slightly to the left,
isn't it more like you have to see it out of your peripheries?
It's like a lunar eclipse. Yeah.
Anyway, but
so great that Griner's coming home because that's
good.
A horrific thing to happen to them.
just yeet away a year of your life because you happen to be in Russia when they did declared an unjust war and got picked up on bullshit pretenses. It's like
it was right at the start of the Ukraine conflict from memory, wasn't it? Poorly timed.
So, absolutely, just to be picked up and have 300 days in a Russian prison, that's fucked. Controversial opinion, I know, but fuck.
It's really
I don't care who hears it.
It's just goes to show that if
need to pay women athletes more.
There's that. But also they're not playing nice. Like the whole Russia-US relationship is just probably worse than it was in the late stages of the Cold War at the moment. Like it's really bad. The fact they have to do stuff like that to just get, because Russia will do crazy shit like that and use people for political leverage. It's really poor. But I guess a lot of other countries do it as well. It's not just them. You can get arrested anywhere, and then there are prisoner swaps and other different things which sort of help. Yeah, it's how sort of things get done, I guess, sometimes. But it's pretty depressing. But speaking of depression, looks like coal and gas prices in Australia are going to get depressed by not very much. They're going to get capped. They're going to get capped. But I couldn't do a segue there. That sucked. But basically,
depressing.
We're trying to
might be getting bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I can't help you.
There was no good segue with that. So basically, the nation's leaders, including the PM and state leaders, have decided to cap prices of gas and coal coming into the new year. So they had National Cabinet, where they worked together and had a big meeting, and Albanese had flagged that they were probably going to do this. And effectively, there's two aspects to it. So one, the states will basically Parliament will pass some legislation that will impose a temporary cap on gas at $12 a gigajoule, and the states would then move to cap coal at $125 per tonne. So there's a federal bit of legislation. The states will do, depending on the legislative framework in each state and how it works with energy companies, they will do their own thing. Like, for instance, I think Queensland has like part ownership of a lot of coal stuff, so they can just use their influence with the ownership to do things that way, whereas New South Wales have to do things a bit more sort of indirectly.
Right.
Isn't privatisation great when private companies and the markets decide? Rather than having state assets owned by the state, and you can just decide how much things cost?
Oh, yeah. Letting the market decide's great until you remember that the market are a bunch of fuckheads.
Yeah, the market's a bunch of fucking cokeheads on Wall Street just going, I reckon coal's going to go up.
Like, why do you reckon it's going to go up? Because I say
because I'm high.
I'm a god.
Anyway, I just got a bunch of fucking Quaaludes. Do you know they don't even make these anymore? Treasury modelling of this policy suggests that Australian households will pay about $230 less a piece next year than if the government had not intervened.
Annually.
Annually for the year.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it's a temporary measure. So the idea is that it's just going to sort of take us through the Ukraine crisis, which could be an indeterminate amount of time, but it's not meant to be a permanent measure. It is interesting that the rest of the states like Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland are having to deal with this problem because of all this privatisation that's happened. Whereas over in Western Australia, they're like, what price hike? Because about 15% of their natural gas supply just goes into reserves. The government just wisely said, hey, we're making all this national gas. Why don't we put some aside for ourselves?
That makes sense.
Yep. And then
Tasmania doesn't even have any, I don't think they even have any coal like mines. It's all like renewables, basically.
Idiots. Bloody idiots.
And then South Australia. I don't know about South Australia. I'm not sure about them.
I know their giant battery.
Their big Elon Musk battery. This seems like it's going to be a good thing. They haven't ruled out sort of some sort of compensation scheme for the companies. But I mean, it's good that Australians have some sort of security as to where their energy prices are going to be, because those tend to affect people. Again, this is, we mentioned sound buttons that we could have before, Tom. Another sound button that we could have is because this disproportionately affects those that are least fortunate. This is probably a sound button we could also have there.
It's sad, but it's true.
So the gas industry has warned that the intervention will push up gas prices by damaging investment confidence and reducing future supply, which is again something that the gas companies can also have on their little soundboard as well. Like, no, sovereign risk. We can't invest here. It's not going to be a good investment for us anymore. It's going to be bad. Prices are going to go up if we don't have complete free market control. If we don't have free market dominance, it's going to be fucked. And that's just like, so this is a Wendy's. I don't know. They're just like, free market control, sovereign risk. It's like, I need to ask you to leave.
The guy selling, the crazy rug seller, just being like, these rugs have to go.
Yeah, it's Crazy Johns. The gas companies are Crazy Johns. Anytime there's any kind of just a hint, a soupçon of regulation, they're like, sovereign risk, we can't possibly fucking justify it. It's like you guys have had all declared record profits year on year for the last couple of years based off, what's been going on with the pandemic. This has been an unabashedly good year for you. Like, companies like Fortescue Metals and stuff are paying out dividends in the order of like 14%. You know, like just stupid money happening and profits happening in these companies. They're just like, no, we couldn't. No. I get the idea where you guys are going. A little bit of regulation to make sure the little guy doesn't get fucked. I warn you, if there is any regulation, we're going to blow up the coal mine. There's no way we could do it. Can't make it work. I wish we could make it work, but we can't.
BHP are just like, we'll blow up so many coal mines on indigenous land. We'll be fine.
100%.
Don't worry about it.
100%. Those kinds of sovereign risks that I don't seem to be too upset about. They're like, whoa, was there an indigenous heritage site there? Blow it up! Do you think this could maybe come back to bite us? Nah, don't worry about it. It should be right.
It's all good.
What is that? 60,000 years of contiguous indigenous history we're blowing up? Fuck them. Blow it up.
I mean, it just, the thing is, like, Australia, we're basically, our whole economy is sort of
digging shit out of the ground and selling it to China.
And it makes you go, it's kind of crazy because a lot of we look and talk like a developed economy, but it really is
just digging shit out of the ground and selling it to China. Like, it really is. They're like, what about the cow herders and the good Australian beef and the good Australian wine? They're like, okay, that pales by a factor of 30 against the resources industry. The resources industry is why anything exists here in this country. It's all based on FIFO workers and tradies making their money so they can fly up to Bali and spend it. Okay, that's our entire economy. And sometimes there's restaurants in between.
So wait, you're telling me that banning all the debaucherous sex in Indonesia is actually going to mean that money has to be spent back here?
It's really an investment plan.
I'm suddenly on board.
It's a sovereign investment fund.
The thing that I don't understand, really, I mean, this is an economics question, is that, like, we dig so much stuff out of the ground, but we're still so beholden to market prices. Like, if for some reason coal prices globally go up because of a war in Ukraine, the Australian coal producers are like, oh well, I guess we've got no choice. We have
no choice.
Literally buckets.
We have no choice but to maximize every single and this is like, I don't want to be like, and this is capitalism, but this is capitalism. It's like, if you have the opportunity if it's a global commodity and you've got the option to sell it on the open market elsewhere for more money, people that run companies have a fiduciary obligation to do things that are in the best financial interests of the company at the expense of everyone else. Companies are sociopaths. Back to the point before that we're making about, like, this crazy company, like, drove into a truck drove into a street full of people and they're insulated from anything that goes wrong, any kind of negative externalities that come about as a result of their actions. Like, oh, well, climate change is eating the planet. They're like, well, we didn't know what they were going to do with the coal once we sold it to them. It's our job to make sure that we sell it for the highest price and get the maximum return for our shareholders.
While Peter Dutton's going, no, it is actually about supply. You just need to pump more gas in. Just get more gas
more fossil fuels.
More fossil fuels. Yeah,
not enough fossil fuels.
I know it's bad and particularly partisan of me to say this, but as soon as I saw, like, not fully understanding, like, how, because, we're seeing capping it might reduce prices a little more, but energy prices are still going to go up. And I was a bit like, I'm a bit confused. I need to read more about this. But the very fact that Peter Dutton immediately got out to say, like, this is an awful idea and that's terrible and we hate it. And be like, so it must be good then. All right, so I should be for this probably, in theory. If Peter Dutton says it's bad, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, not to be that guy, but yeah, Peter Dutton is one of those guys that is professionally wrong about everything for his entire career. It's a pretty safe bet if Peter Dutton likes the idea. It's a bad one. It should be abandoned. So
it's one of these things, like, energy in Australia is like the thing that has been the political football for the last 20 years, and no one
it's the thing that has always ousted each prime minister we've had.
Yeah, they talk about the inflation dragon. It's not the inflation dragon. It's the energy dragon. That's the thing that's toppled. Yeah, all the prime ministers.
Ironically,
recently.
If we had some sort of national energy guarantee,
fuck it,
or some sort of carbon trading scheme, like, some of these things might potentially have already been sorted.
But the thing, like, when it comes down to it, I understand these companies are doing what they have to do for profit because capitalism. I get that. But also, like, from a first principles perspective, like, who do those resources belong to? They belong to the Australian people. Okay? That stuff that's under the dirt that you're digging up and selling off to places belongs to the Australian people. Those are our resources. Okay? So there needs to be some kind... I'm not saying that we need to nationalize the oil fields at the point of a gun, like Venezuela or something like that.
Like one of those Scandinavian countries did it, didn't they?
But I think we can certainly have a system, regulations in place that make it much more equitable to make sure that the resources don't just flow to the few percentage point, or, the few percentage of the small percent of Australians, rather, is what I'm trying to say, that own stocks in Woodside are the beneficiaries of this. It should be for the Australian people. In Alaska, they've got a fund. Okay, oil that's generated and sold.
Sovereign wealth fund.
The sovereign wealth fund that then distributes that money to the people. Okay, as much as there's a lot of human rights concerns and other things going on with Qatar, Qatar. I don't want to be that guy that's like says it properly, like Barcelona. But there's a lot of problems in Qatar. But it's but they have the sovereign wealth fund, which means people who are citizens, people who aren't citizens get fucked, but people who are citizens of the country share in the prosperity that the nation generates. And that is something more like what it should be. It should be a situation where rather than a few coal producers and their shareholders getting wealthy at the expense of Australians, and then Australians need to pay sky-high prices when the global commodity rates go up as though we're just like any other country consuming these commodities, makes no sense to me whatsoever. There should be some sort of super profits tax, which Labor suggested under, was it Kevin Rudd or Julia Gillard, which got completely shouted down by the resources industry for for the reason that it would actually help people. If there was a super profits tax like that, something like that in place would really help everyday Australians, because it means in times like this when there's price instability, yes, the company can make their ludicrous profits, but some of that has to come back to the Australian people from whom the resources are being taken.
Yeah. Like there are some taxes in place, like, our budget always changes depending on how the commodities prices are doing.
Yeah, but we're just talking about regular corporate tax situation stuff. There's nothing, and there's a lot of
depending on
givebacks to the fossil fuel industries and subsidies and other kinds of tax write-offs. That
state you're in as well, there'll be different things between each state, right? But no, there isn't. There's definitely room in that space.
Yes.
For further work.
I just can't imagine, doing quarter after quarter record profits, breaking the records from the quarter before, each quarter consecutively for nearly a couple of years at this point, and then just crying poor, saying, no, there's no way that we could possibly... Resource prices are orders of magnitude higher than they were before. If you're profitable at, $3, $4 a gigajoule and making huge money, all of a sudden you're saying you can't afford a cap of $12 a gigajoule. Like it strains credibility.
So inflated. Everything's inflated. It's
literally,
inflation.
It's like you're talking to a fat cat and you'd be like, can I have a couple of gold coins? You go, no, I couldn't. It's that fat guy in the Monty Python sketch. I couldn't possibly eat another bite. Fuck off. I'm full. I'm starving. I haven't got, and it's just like bags of cash just like dropping out of his pants as he walks. Just like,
it's like, but this extra subsidy, it's but wafer thin.
It's only a wafer thin. Yeah. It's disgusting. But like completely predictable and unsurprising from natural gas extraction companies who this is what they do. They dig shit out of the ground and they sell it for money for the interest of their shareholders. We should be unsurprised that they...
Hydrogen's going to sort it, guys. Don't you worry. Big hydrogen's going to come in and just fix everything.
What we need is more resource industry. That'll be the solution to the rampant resource industry that's bought both political parties.
Yes. So anyway,
we solved it. There we go.
We fixed it.
Have you tried more resource industry?
Not to mention the fact that the energy grid, which then relies on some of those resources as well, is also broken. But anyway,
well,
it's all good because
Oh no, Adam. If you have a segue, you've been doing great so far. Come on, hit us.
Would we say great? Is that the term we would use? No, I was just going to say, well. Yeah, I mean, it's what else is also good is that Labor have worked out why they won the election.
Correct. Yeah, I was going to say in further news, Labor have conducted an official review. We love a review, we love an inquiry, we love a commission. We love all these sorts of things where everyone just lollygags around and goes, so why do you reckon it happened, eh? And yeah, Labor have sat down to do a review of the federal election that they won when they really wanted to know why and how they gave the Liberal National Coalition.
Because the party room had no fucking clue. They're like, how do we win this?
Like, how the fuck did we
How'd we do
slay
this?
them so hard? Like, oh man, like we just absolutely like thrashed them, and like, why? Why, you guys?
That's not what we normally do. I was expecting to be a shadow minister again. That's weird.
Yeah, they figured out why, or at least they figured out what they considered was the single biggest factor, and it was former Prime Minister Scott Morrison's, quote, unpopularity.
Scott Morrison was a duffel bag of shit. Okay. Well, that makes it. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I thought this was interesting just for two reasons. One, the aforementioned duh part of it. It's like, oh yeah, you won the election.
Right,
because
hang on, stop, one second. Let's just put a sound bite in. Let's just hit the record
Let's isolate
button.
it. Ready?
duh.
All right, I'm putting it on the soundboard.
Wonderful. Yeah, like not only that aspect of it, it's like, yeah, he was a colossal piece of shit and everyone really didn't like him, like across the board. Like, yeah, you needed a whole fucking review to know that. But also it's also, to me, it struck me as like, of course that was what your finding was gonna be. How did we win the election so good?
Is it because of our big dicks?
Maybe it's because the guy who wasn't us was shit.
Blue balls.
Yeah, that seems good. Like, of course.
Government does a report on government. Government finds government good.
Yeah, they're not going to say like, oh, we've looked really hard into it, and even though we're a bunch of incompetent numpties who just were fumbling the ball at every turn, just somehow everyone stumbled into a voting booth and ticked the wrong box, and just here we are. No, they'd never say that was their finding. Of course they're going to say it's because the party that's not us are a pack of shitheads.
In all fairness,
there was more to the report.
The leader of the party that wasn't them was a colossal shithead, which definitely had something. So all we need to do is make sure that Labor runs against colossal shitheads every election cycle, which, given that Peter Dutton is the head of the Liberal Party, should give them a lock in the next election.
100%. God, I hope Peter Dutton's the leader of the party.
Oh, fingers crossed.
The rest of fucking time.
Yep. Up you go, Peter. Off you go, mate.
Well, they went to the election. They've got a mandate to do the things that they were not mandated to do. So,
so it's just absolutely brilliant. But fucking nadir.
I mean, it is one of those things where it's like, you can't question your own assumptions. You've got to do a thorough investigation to prove your hypothesis. Just question your assumptions. So they've done that.
Yeah, but hang on. If the 60-page review is authored by Labor veterans Greg Combay and Lenda Oshalem, who are Labor heavyweights, I very much doubt that you're going to get a completely, impartial kind of review into Labor's practices if you're employing Labor people to do the review. Like, surely, not that I love giving money to, global consultancies or anything like that, but surely there's someone more impartial that could have done this assessment on your behalf to see exactly.
You need a Labor insider to really tell it how it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we've gotten someone impartial. We're getting Dan Andrews to do the review for us.
Yeah, we're just going to read this report and it's going to be like, so how did we do it? Well, if it weren't for Albanese's chiseled abs and just huge penis, and then also all our amazing, brilliant policies that were just so well thought out and absolutely perfect and purely bulletproof.
I'm just looking at this report back from Dan Andrews. And it's just a picture of Matthew Guy with devil horns on it and a dick drawn on his face. So I don't know what that means, but
just some really wild mobster with a lobster.
And a lobster,
graffiti.
a lobster with a Tommy gun on it. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So we should mention that the report did have a bunch of other details to it. There were 27 recommendations to establish a long-term progressive Labor government.
Well, surely that's going to be in the next election cycle because they haven't established a progressive government this election cycle, from my reckoning.
No, they're sort of just sitting as central as they can. The thing that struck me a bit was that, on election night, how the ABC would just turn around to Tanya Plibersek and they were like, What are you going to do?
Listen,
Your
cunt.
primary is fallen.
Listen, cunt.
What are you going to do?
You
You're gonna have to
fucking
do some
loser
soul
shithead.
searching.
What the fuck are you going to do, you stupid prick? And
So-
Tanya's like, we won the election. I don't know
Yeah.
why you guys are mad at me.
How have you fucked this up so badly, you victorious fuck?
So this report is the answer to those crazy, like, wide-eyed allegations. One of the things they picked up was that potentially parachuting in candidates like Christina Keneally into a Vietnamese electorate was probably a bad idea.
You reckon?
I could have told you that without this really long review. Like, I think also in the duh category is that.
Yeah, so for those wondering, that was the seat where they parachuted in Christina Keneally, Labor heavyweight, was not someone who'd lived in the seat of Fowler previously, ended up losing it to Dai Lee, who's an independent, if I recall correctly, but should have just been the candidate that Labor put forward for that seat she is from the seat from whence she came. So, yeah, to try to parachute in Labor heavyweights that no one likes into seats that they have no association with, believe it or not a winning strategy, as noted by heavyweight strategist George fucking Sipos on this very podcast at the time that it happened. Whatever.
Good. I think we'll skip over the next story because it's a bit sad, maybe. I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about the trial thing, or are we good?
So we'll just cover it in brief, but
we'll touch it.
That's got to
gross.
be a better verb that you could have used there.
No, bad, but the phrasing.
So Bruce Lehrmann, who was accused of assaulting Brittney Higgins in his trial recently, which has subsequently been dropped. So the first trial went to a mistrial because of a juror who brought in some fun internet research and thought it'd be fun and cool to share it with his fellow jurors. So that case was declared a mistrial.
I don't even know if it was shared with other jurors. They were cleaning up the room and they just found the report. Like
my
they just found the
understanding.
research. So,
Well, yeah, we can get some clarification on that. My understanding was that it was shared with other jurors, and that's why. Because if it wasn't shared, you could just sub in an alternate at that point or something, couldn't you? If it was just one guy.
I don't know. I just thought they canned
Not
it
once
because
you've
it's
gone to
hard to
deliberation.
get another. Well, down to deliberation, but
No.
also getting another juror that isn't considered tainted
No.
by all the media coverage or to actually give an impartial whatever.
So you can't once they'd already been deliberating for 4 days. Once that's happened, that's it. So you have a spare or two before you go to deliberate.
Yeah. Because even if you subbed someone in, they haven't seen the whole trial of evidence.
No. Once they've gone off, then that's it. If you fuck it from there, then you fuck the whole thing.
Anyway, this guy fucked the whole case, and so it went to a mistrial. The intention at that point was to retry Bruce Lehrmann. Brittney Higgins was then. It was decided that her mental health was at risk, and so the Department of Public Prosecution said that they weren't going to pursue the case against Bruce Lehrmann going forward.
Which, well done, everyone.
Cool.
Well done, everyone, for absolutely destroying the mental health of the woman coming forward of an assault case.
Yeah, and it's raised a lot of questions around,
Right.
having additional protections in our legal system for the victims of crime. Obviously, there's lots of protections in place for the people who are accused of crimes to make sure that they are, tried fairly and innocent before proven guilty and all this sort of stuff. They're under no obligation to testify at their own trial, things like that. But it is notable that those same sort of protections aren't afforded to the people who are the victims of crimes, essentially giving the Department of Public Prosecutions, whilst it is trying to try the person, but it essentially gives them a platform to then re-traumatize the person who is the alleged victim of the crime. So that's not good. And we should find a smarter way of doing that in the year 2022. I'm just imagining some alien digging up this historical record 1,000 years from now, hearing this recording and going, they never did they? Anyway, so it then emerged as Bruce Lehrmann's, as the trial against Bruce Lehrmann was not proceeding. It then emerged in the media that there had been other women that have come forward
with allegations
that Bruce Lehrmann assaulted them as well.
So they decided, I guess, that because the whole concept of having a fair trial, they didn't want
They were
that.
gagged from reporting it openly.
And the articles have been deleted online. They would have come up probably well before the trial
or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but also like it also you sort of just go you hear that and you just think, fuck, they really fucked it. Like it's broken. The whole thing is broken.
Well, and just I don't know. For me, it's just infuriating the very idea that it's like, oh well, the actual process to determine whether or not someone is guilty of assaulting someone else and to be punished for it has been dropped because all the stuff, A, the process of doing that, and B, I'd say all the media and public scrutiny and commentary surrounding it as well has just destroyed the mental health of the survivor. Infuriates me to no end.
Yeah, it really is just
despicable. Absolutely despicable.
Darkest timeline possible outcome for this case. Obviously, we don't love being sued for defamation, so I would like to clarify that the guilt of Bruce Lehrmann has not been confirmed by a court of law. It is obviously a matter that is still up for the courts, but it seems unlikely that any of these cases are going to proceed to trial at this stage, which is very disturbing. That a person who has had multiple credible accounts of sexual assault levied against them is not only not reported on in the media, but then also the chief case that was against him doesn't proceed to trial. It's just broken on every level. Is there any way we can shoehorn some jokes, maybe like a funny voice into this, some sort of obviously racially appropriate funny voice? Don't want anyone doing like a Chinese accent, but like a French or a German accent. I think that's still okay. I could do an Italian one. I'm allowed, or a Greek.
Nailed it. They didn't, in fact, nail it.
They didn't, in fact, nail it.
Yeah.
I know. In fact, just the hammer completely missed the nail. Kind of just swung back into their own face.
Good way of segueing to the next thing, which is Peru.
That's one spicy meatball.
One spicy meatball.
George got it in there. He got it in there. There we go.
Finishing up this week, if you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening in Peru,
and you almost certainly haven't been, because no one ever does pay attention to Peru. But Peru has been,
because it's been a week in Peru.
Wild. Yeah.
It's been a wild week.
Strap in for this one.
I've got to find where it starts.
Well, from how I understood, the cursory aspect of it that I'd seen was that president or prime minister of Peru? They have president.
President.
That the president was going to be formally ousted, like whatever sort of the equivalent of an impeachment where you actually remove the figure.
It was
an impeachment to then also with the intention to remove them from their position. The Peru president said, "Hold my beer. How about I fire y'all?"
Yeah, you can't fire me.
You know what?
I fire the government.
None of you have jobs anymore. You
Hard
can't
to fire me when you have no legs.
Yeah. It's like an episode of The Scary Door in Futurama or something. Like, why should I listen to you? You're Hitler.
What?
Just everything going crazy. Yeah, he just fired the government to stop them firing him. Was what I saw.
A classic.
He did that.
Otherwise known as the attempted John Kerr.
So he did that. He dissolved Parliament, but they went, "No, fuck you,
fuck me, fuck me,
fuck you,
fuck you, fuck you,
fuck you."
And they proceeded. They proceeded with the vote anyway. With 100, I think there were 101 votes in favour of removing him, 6 against, and 10 abstentions.
Abstentions. Jesus Christ.
I was going to say abstinations. That's not a real word.
Yeah,
sorry. 5 abalone spritzers.
Yeah. I was going to say 101 for, 6 against, and 10 sea and enemies.
Very good.
And so I guess, I mean, it's weird because he kind of, I guess, probably could have just like, I don't know, like just fought back against it. But I don't know whether he, like the police rocked up. I think it did actually. It said the police force had intervened to fulfill its duties and referred to Mr. Castillo as the ex-president. So the parliament, whoever was sort of in parliament, must have been able to influence the police force, which is basically force the president from office. Because if they didn't have the muscle, then that wouldn't have been.
Oh, cool. Really, so it's one of those classic might makes right scenarios. That feels very democratic.
Well, I mean, it's democratic, but yeah, it was. Yeah, but I feel like the key factor was the police decided to, go with democracy as opposed to literal dictatorship.
Well, which I suppose which version of democracy you're talking about there? Because Pedro Castillo was democratically elected, and it seems to be this weird blend of like social, sort of economically leftist kind of perspective, and then like socially very conservative. But like overwhelmingly popular, won by a large margin from what I understand in the last election. So was democratically elected, and then the Congress has just kind of noped him out of there, which feels like a bit of a coup. So they're trying to coup him, and he goes, "You can't coup me, I coup you."
Like he basically said he had a televised address and said that he was going to rule by decree. And
which that's not good. Obviously, that's not good.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
But he promised fresh and fair elections in due course.
I don't know why you can't have, why he couldn't have stepped in and said, okay, rather than the threshold for impeachment being, we don't fucking like this guy, maybe there's some sort of executive order that he could have put forward that said like, hey, we can still do impeachments, but the standard needs to be raised. Right, you need to have some sort of, impartial judicial oversight. There needs to be a body of evidence. There needs to be a trial, something like the American system, where, there is some sort of adjudication. Right, he can't. It was a mistake, I think, to say, actually, I'm king now. I'm just going to pull a Julius Caesar and just say, I am the Senate.
It was one of those things where it was like, if he hadn't done that, they would have got him anyway because
they were out to get him for sure. Yeah,
because he was. They were basically going to impeach him. They asked him to basically... Well, they'd filed a constitutional complaint against him for allegedly leading a criminal organisation to profit from state contracts and for obstructing investigations.
Did they get a hold of Hunter Biden's laptop? Is that why they're saying all of this?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And of course, the president said that was slander, so he sort of tried to get in first. But he survived 2 previous attempts to impeach him, and he's only been in office since July 2021. So it's been a busy year.
They've had a new president like every year for the last 6 years. It's been completely turbo fucked.
It's pretty crazy. So now we've got there's now a new interim president, Dina Boluarte. Pronounce that correctly. And she's called for a political truce and national unity government, and let's all get back on track. Yeah,
it's good. She's a corporatist, so all the big political corporate interests are behind her. We'll keep the place functioning on the status quo, so that's great. There's a guy who wants to help the workers. We need to get him out.
Like I posted this earlier in the week, and I was like, "Oh shit, there's been like a coup in Peru." And then I was thinking like, oh, they're going to go to a dictatorship. And then it was like, I looked at it like 2 days later. I was like, oh no, this new president. That all just wrapped up real quickly. Yep.
And some Peruvian llama farmers going, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on out there?
Machu Picchu?
Machu Picchu. I think that's Peru.
Is that Peru?
Yeah, I've never been. I hear it's beautiful.
Yeah, the tourists there are just like, oh.
All right. So I can still walk on the track, right?
That'll be $400. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, that's fine. I expected that. So Peru's cabinet was then asked to kneel before the new president, and she asked them to take an anti-corruption pledge. I don't know why no one ever thought of that before. Have you tried making them take a pledge to not be corrupt fuckheads?
But also, can you ask them also to kneel like you're a king?
like or a queen in this instance?
It's the ring.
Yes, queen. Get it. Get it, girl.
Yeah, you'd hate to see a girl boss succeed.
So Miss Boluarte was elected as vice president on the presidential ticket that brought the centre-left Mr. Castillo to power last year. And she was Minister of Development and Social Inclusion during the 17-month administration. And now replaces him as president. Say again?
She was picked by this guy as the vice president.
Et tu, Brute.
Literally. I reckon we should cover more of this stuff. Like, there is some fucked up shit that happens with, like, overseas coups and stuff.
Why Anthony Albanese boring you with his price caps on oil?
Yes, he's fucking boring me. You got to like some places.
Geez, Albo.
Adam wants a couple of industries to be nationalised on the end of an AK-47. Let's fucking go.
I want some more like Venezuelan.
I want some rebellion
attempts and stuff.
I want tanks rolling through squares. Anthony Albanese's not going to give me that. Boring stability. The guy's going to nod off.
It's been like 3 coups in Africa in the last like 6 months. I don't know. I'm just trying to look here. Yeah, there's been. This is from February. 6th coup in Africa. This is like in February, so there's been more since then.
Nice.
Guinea-Bissau, that was a coup attempt there. Just having a look. Burkina Faso.
So you're saying if we just start a exclusively coup-based podcast, we have plenty of material? I don't know.
Material. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying we should just explore our options for material. That's all I'm
like,
saying.
oh, great. There's a shit ton of coups going on.
The coup-cast.
The coup-cast. Ooh.
Coup-cast.
Put a hashtag on that one.
I'm registering the website.
Jesus.
We have to pay you for it because we owe you.
Yeah, you guys owe me money. I'll talk to you about it later.
For this one first, and then but oh boy, that's going to be a fun production meeting. I say that like we have production meetings.
We do. It's basically a Discord chat. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, which costs us money, at unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at Unnatural Show. So that's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me to the bus because I've been banned from social media.
Yeah, that's a fun story. We should talk about that. We should get your Twitter. Twitter's still happening. I'm not getting you on Mastodon because there's no, I don't see how that's going.
Maybe I'll just go back to MySpace.
Yes, let's all go back to MySpace.
MySpace was pretty good. I did some HTML coding, got some lights going on my profile, had my top 8 friends.
Remember when you could just set it up so some really obnoxious song would start playing the moment anyone hopped on your feed?
Yeah.
We're gonna bring that back.
Offspring. Yep.
Metal Gear Solid 2 theme song.
Nice.
Baby.
You big nerd. Thanks for listening, guys. We love your faces, and we'll see you next week on the CooCast.
I'm hard vetoing the CooCast. I'm sorry.
You're voted,
I'm
mate.
bringing a section.
2 out of 3. I declare myself president. You're all fired.
Yeah, I was going to say the fact that I'm using veto power over a CooCast is a bit of an irony, and then it came down to a vote.
Mm-hmm. We're still.
You know what? I'm back on board. It's jokes like that. Let's
and
do
now
it.
I'm the president of the CooCast. Every week you got a new president because the previous one's been overthrown.
Adam, kneel down. Swear you're field teacher.
Swear. Bend the knee. Bend the knee, Adam.
I don't have any knees.